Welcome again to the Medical Terminology Podcast. This episode is Chapter 9, Part 1, Word Parts and Anatomy pertaining to the urinary system. The urinary system is probably about the same level of difficulty as the respiratory and the digestive systems. I do think that there's a few parts of the chapter that are a bit confusing because the presentation is not as clear as it could be, and so I'm going to do my best to straighten that out for you. But first of all, we're going to talk about, as usual, the word parts and the anatomy, as well as the function of the urinary system. The urinary system has three main functions. First, it maintains the proper balance of waters, salts, and acids in the body by filtering the blood. Second, it removes urea and other waste products from the blood. Urea, spelled U-R-E-A, is a waste product of protein metabolism. And finally, the urinary system converts waste products and excess fluid into urine, which then is excreted from the body. Well, the first term I have for you is urine, U-R-I-N-E, and there are three word parts for urine. The first two are combining forms, uro, U-R/O, and urino, U-R-I-N/O. The third word part is a suffix, urea, -U-R-I-A. All three of these word parts refer to urine, and they're probably used an equal amount of the time. Now, the most important organ in the urinary system is the kidney, K-I-D-N-E-Y. It's the kidney that is responsible for the filtering process. And we have two word parts that relate to kidney. The first one is nephro, N-E-P-H-R/O. And the second one is reno, R-E-N/O. And using the word part reno, we have a term renal, R-E-N-A-L, and that term is used to mean pertaining to the kidneys or pertaining to the urinary system. Now, the kidneys have three major parts. The first part is called the renal cortex, R-E-N-A-L, cortex, C-O-R-T-E-X. And the renal cortex is the outermost layer of the kidney, and it contains the nephrons. Nephrons, also referred to as nephron units, are the functional unit of the kidney. What we mean by that is it's the nephron or the nephron unit that is responsible for doing the actual filtration process. Now, a nephron has two major subparts. The first one is the glomerulus, which is a little tricky to say and spell. Glomerulus, G-L-O-M-E-R-U-L-U-S. Glomerulus is a cluster of capillaries. And we have a word part that refers to glomerulus, and that is glomerulo, G-L-O-M-E-R-U-L/O, glomerulo. It's a cluster of capillaries within the nephron unit, and this is where the blood exchange actually happens. Surrounding the glomerulus is the Bowman's capsule, capital B, O-W-M-A-N'(S), capsule, C-A-P-S-U-L-E. The Bowman's capsule is a membrane that surrounds the capillaries. And what happens is this membrane will filter out the urea and waste products from the blood as they're passing through the capillaries and the membrane. There's this filtration exchange, and then the blood that is coming in will be filtered, and then it will go back out. And there's a diagram showing this in the textbook. The second major part of the kidney is the medulla, medulla. And the medulla is the inner region of the kidney. The third part of the kidney is called the renal pelvis, renalpelvis. And the renal pelvis has a word part for it. It is pyelo, Pyel/O. Pyelo refers to renal pelvis. What is the renal pelvis? The renal pelvis is a funnel-shaped area within each kidney that is surrounded by the medulla and the cortex. And it's the renal pelvis that collects the urine that the kidneys make before it flows down to the ureters. Okay, so to review, we have a kidney, and the word part for kidney is what? Well, there's two of them, right? There's nephro, Nephr/O, and reno, REN/O. And the kidney's composed of three major parts. The first part is what? That's the renal cortex, RENAL CORTEX. The second major part is what? That's the medulla, MEDULLA. And the third major part is what? That's the renal pelvis, RENALPELVIS. And what is the word part for renal pelvis? That's pyelo, PYEL/O. And what is the function of that innermost area, the renal pelvis? What does it do? Well, it collects the urine before it is allowed to flow on down to the ureters. Okay, and what is the functional unit of the kidney? That's the nephron or the nephron unit. And where is the nephron unit located? Or actually, the nephron units, there's many of them. Okay, that's in the renal cortex, which is the outer layer of the kidney. And what are the components of the nephron unit? Okay, there's the glomerulus, GLOMERULUS, and the glomerulus is what? It's that cluster of capillaries that bring in the blood. And then the second major part is the Bowman's capsule, BOWMAN''S. And the Bowman's capsule is, that's the membrane that surrounds the capillaries and that performs the filtration process. Okay, so that covers the kidney and the parts of the kidney. Now, leaving the kidney, we have the ureters, URETERS, and these are the tubes that carry the urine away from the kidney down to the bladder. And we have a word part for ureter. That's pretty straightforward. It's uretero, URETER/O. The ureters carry the urine down to the bladder, and we've got two word parts for bladder. The first one is cysto, CYST/O, and that makes a little sense because if you remember gallbladder from the last chapter, what was the word part for gallbladder? That was cholecysto, and if you remember, chole referred to bile, cysto referred to bladder, so that was bile bladder, that is to say the gallbladder. This bladder, the urinary bladder, is cysto by itself, CYST/O. We have a second combining form for bladder that is used less frequently, but we do see it, and that is vesico, VSIC/O. Now, from the bladder, the urine can flow into the urethra, URETHRA. And we have to be careful of urethra because it sure looks like ureter. The first few letters are the same and it's very easy to confuse them, so we want to be careful of that. The ureter goes from the kidneys to the bladder. The urethra goes from the bladder to outside the body. And we do have a word part for urethra, and that's urethro. URETHR/O. Urethro. Now, in males, there's an organ that is actually a reproductive organ, although it's been included in this chapter on the urinary system, and that is called the prostate, PROSTATE, and it has a word part, prostato, PROSTAT/O. And the prostate surrounds the urethra, and it's located just in front of or anterior to the bladder. And it's something that can give males quite a bit of trouble, especially when they hit middle age and older. Finally, we have the opening from the urethra to the outside of the body. It's the end of the urethra, and that is called the meatus, MEATUS. And the meatus has a combining form that, again, is pretty straightforward. It's meato, MEAT/O. Okay, well, those are the major parts of the urinary system, and let's go ahead and do some practice on those. What is the combining form that refers to bladder? That's cysto, CYST/O. We also have a secondary one, not used as often, and that is vesico, VESIC/O. What is the suffix that refers to urine? That's urea, -URIA. What is the functional unit of the kidney? That's the nephron unit, NEPHRON, unit UNIT. What is the combining form that refers to the external opening of the urethra? Well, the external opening of the urethra is the meatus, and the combining form for that is meato, MEAT/O. And what is the combining form that refers to the kidney? Well, we actually have two of those. We have nephro, NEPHR/O, which is probably used most often. Then we also have reno, REN/O. What is the combining form that refers to the male reproductive organ that is also part of the urinary system? We would refer to that as a genitourinary organ. Well, that's the prostate that we're referring to, and the combining form is prostato, PROSTAT/O. What is the term for the outer layer of the kidney? Well, that's the renal cortex, RENAL, cortex, CORTEX. And what is the combining form for the inside of a kidney where the urine collects? Well, we're talking about the renal pelvis here, and the combining form for that is pyelo, PYEL/O. And what is the term for the cluster of capillaries inside a nephron unit? Well, that's the glomerulus, GLOMERULUS. And do you remember the word part for that? That's pretty straightforward. That's glomerulo, GLOMERUL/O. And finally, what are the tubes that carry urine from the kidneys to the bladder? Those are the ureters, URETERS. And those are not to be confused with the single tube that carries urine from the bladder outside the body. What is the term for that? That's the urethra, URETHRA. Okay, and then we just have a few suffixes that are relating to pathologies and procedures. The first one is ectasis, hyphen ECTASIS. Ectasis refers to enlargement or stretching. The second one relates to prolapse. And do you remember what prolapse means from the last chapter? Well, prolapse means that an organ has slipped out of position. Often it's slipped downwards. And the suffix that means prolapse is ptosis, or we could say ptosis, hyphen PTOSIS. And then we did see this suffix last time, but it doesn't hurt to review it. The suffix for surgical fixation, and this would be like surgical fixation of a prolapsed organ. What is that suffix? Do you remember? Well, that's pexy, hyphen PEXY. And then we have another suffix that's going to show up again that we saw quite a few chapters back, and that is the suffix for setting free. It can also mean destruction or degeneration or breakdown. Do you remember that suffix? Well, that's lysis, hyphen lysis. Lysis meaning setting free as a surgical procedure, or it can also mean destruction or breakdown of something. And then finally, we have a new suffix that means to crush. And the suffix that means to crush is tripsy, hyphen tripsy. Okay, so that's 5 new, or let's say important to review, suffixes. So let's go ahead and practice on those. Number 1, what is the suffix that refers to an enlargement or stretching? That's ectasis, hyphen ectasis. If an organ is prolapsed, what is the suffix for a procedure that would correct it? Well, that's pexy, hyphen pexy. And you'll notice that was kind of a critical thinking question. If an organ is prolapsed, you have to remember that that means what? Slid out of position, and the procedure that would correct it would be apexy, hyphen pexy, which means surgical fixation. Okay, and what is the suffix that refers to a prolapse? Well, that's ptosis or ptosis, hyphen ptosis. And what is the suffix that means to crush? That's tripsy, hyphen tripsy. And finally, what is the suffix that means destruction or breakdown or degeneration? It could also mean surgical freeing or loosening. Well, that's lysis, hyphen lysis. Okay, well, that does it for the anatomy and the word parts in chapter 9. Next time, we'll go ahead and start looking at the pathologies. This ends this episode of the Medical Terminology Podcast.